What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Welcome back to another episode of So How'd You Get Here? I'm Angelo.
I'm Tony.
And welcome to the show today. We have a guest that I'm just going to go right into some of his credits because there's a lot of them, and we only have about an hour. He worked on Mork and Mindy, Bob Newhart, Get a Life, a few of his other credits, big ones, Seinfeld, King of Queens, Rules of Engagement. He's been Emmy nominated. I'd like to welcome to the show today Mr. Wayne Kennan. Thank you for being here today, sir.
Well, thanks for having me.
We have a mutual friend who is also a cinematographer, and she got you here today for us.
Yeah.
And thank you very much, Robin.
Thanks,
we appreciate
Robin.
that.
Thank you, Robin.
I think I want to start with I know there's a lot to cover, and we don't have a lot of time.
So much.
Born in Whittier, California, is that right?
Born and raised in Whittier, California, till I was 17 or 18. I went off to school in San Diego.
Okay. Now,
University of San Diego or San Diego State?
San Diego State.
Okay, the Aztecs.
Yes.
Nice.
sports fan.
Yeah.
Okay, but did I hear correct in one of your interviews, or I read somewhere that both of your parents were from Midwest, more farm?
Yeah,
you're the first.
They grew up on farms.
Yep.
So, obvious question is, you're here, no one in the business, no one that you know. What was the first clue, or can you give us like the origins of the first camera you bought? I think I read something like you were like 11 or 12 or something like that, and you bought a Kodak or something.
There was a drugstore in Uptown Whittier that was going out of business, and we got a little, it was called the Brownie Regular 8 camera, and you had to crank it up. You know, we got it for $20.
That was a lot back then.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but, compared, and we started making little films.
And that was Super 8?
Regular 8.
Regular 8.
Yes.
Okay. And for the audience that might not know, can you explain the difference between the two?
It's a much smaller picture and a little bit different, configuration. In other words, it was more like a 3x4 Academy.
Got you.
You can use that on a $20 camera, but that's what it was.
And what was this first masterpiece that you shot, or several of them? And how do we get a copy of it?
I don't know if they exist anywhere.
Because you destroyed them all.
No, they actually weren't that bad. It was Massacre at Cowpea Gulch.
Cowpea?
Yeah, there was an area behind Whittier that was still wilderness, and somebody, I think it was the Pellissier Dairy, grazed some of their cattle back there. So, for whatever reason, everybody called it Cowpea Gulch.
Okay.
And
So the massacre at Cowpea Gulch.
I really would like to get a copy of it. If you could, take your mic and tilt it down this way just a little bit so it points more. Yeah, that way when you lean to the side.
Oh,
it should be.
okay.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. So, Massacre at Cowpea Gulch. I'm assuming this is either a vampire or a Western.
it was
movie.
a Western.
Okay, see, it was one or the
Yeah.
other. And how many people died in it?
I think it ended with everybody shooting each other and killing each other.
So no sequel. Got
It was a massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, there's even some backstory leading up to you shooting that. Like, that you didn't just wake up one day and do that. Were you interested in photography? Did you already start to like to goof around with editing?
Well, I started out with a dark room in my parents' bathroom, which didn't last very long. And
How did your mom feel about that?
well, once the tile got stained, she got a new bathroom.
Oh, so it worked out for both of you. Okay, well
But
played.
that was the end of that. So
And then, so from a young age, you clearly liked some element of storytelling or photography or telling stories with pictures.
well,
Can you walk us
well,
through a little bit of the beginnings?
I was a kind of a technically oriented kid. I'd take everything apart and see
Okay.
how it worked. And oh God, what the here's what happened. We went to. I was interested in this, and I had found a magazine called American Cinematographer at the magazine stand in Uptown Whittier. They always carried a couple copies, and so I bought it. And I said, "Well, you could. This looks like a lot of fun," and my buddies were going down to San Diego. Oh, let me go back a second. The you know, in those days, counselors, you met with them once, even if you had, you know, problems. You met with them once,
Yeah.
and all they did was tell you what you should major in college, what you should become.
Because they knew you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was told I could be an engineer, a teacher, or a businessman, none of which interested me
Right.
in the least. And I remember leaving there feeling kind of depressed, you know. And my buddy's sister was a quite good looking, and she was picked for a show which I don't know if anybody remembers this one, Dream Girl 67 or 68, I think it was called.
No.
It was a reality show, one of the first reality shows.
Huh.
And I really don't remember how it went, you know, what happened and how you got there. But she won the Dream Girl thing, and we went down to the studio. I think it was NBC, probably at NBC. I think that's where it was, and I saw these guys shooting, you know, with big giant video cameras
Right.
in those days. But it just looked like that's what I want to do. I want to do something like that. And so my buddies were going down to San Diego State. And I just happened to open the catalog, and they had a telecommunications and film department, which no one ever had. I didn't even know that existed.
Right.
Nice.
You know, that you could major in film, and that's what I did. And love the cinematography part of it. You kind of fall in to what you like to do. I mean, most people who go to film school in those days want to be a producer or a director.
Right.
Right.
You know?
Right. Everybody wants to direct.
Right. And I just wanted to light scenes and create images.
Mm.
And that's what I pursued.
And then I'm gonna back up because we skipped. From what I read on your bio, you see here's I know you had also if I remember correctly, you had a strong interest in music, right? You played a
Yes.
couple instruments,
Right.
so you were clearly artistically, or at least more of the arts bent
Right.
already.
Right.
But you also had kind of the analytical side as well for taking things apart. Yes.
Right. Yes.
So
Making things work.
making things work or fixing things that are
Yeah.
broken. Yeah. And then did those two things combine once you basically apply to San Diego University. What's the
Yeah,
actual
San Diego State University.
San Diego State University?
In those days, anybody.
Oh,
they
there is
didn't-
no.
They didn't have a cap. You know?
Ah.
We had 410 students in that college in our little section.
Wow.
Telecommunications
Yep.
and film, well funded, and you know, with lots of real equipment, you know, that had been donated. So like there was an old, I don't know if you know what an Oricon camera is. It was used it was the original 16 millimeter news camera.
Yeah.
And
So you were cutting on moviolas and doing actual negatives and
Yeah.
piecing.
yeah.
Wow. I've seen it. I've never done it. I've seen
It was a
someone do
real hands-on
Program?
environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're at San Diego State. You're still. It's not USC. It's not UCLA. You're still 2 hours away from LA. When you graduate, do you know what you want to do? Get a job right away?
I just hung up a shingle and started there. San Diego in those days. This is
Okay.
long before. This is when there were still tomato patches on either side of the five.
Yeah.
You know? All those houses weren't there, and the high tech had not moved in or anything. So it was sort of like Aloha Land in a way. It was a real outdoorsy place, but there were some little production companies, and I finally just worked my way in there by pestering them. You know, I didn't know how to come to LA yet because I had
Right.
you know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
Did
and-
you have brothers and sisters, by the way?
I have
growing up?
an older brother, a high school teacher.
Oh, okay.
So the guidance counselor got him right.
Yeah.
Missed the mark with
Yeah.
you. Now, I'm assuming at that time is a 4-year degree.
Yeah.
Because you graduated with a degree, and
Right.
then you found out probably it doesn't get you work or something like that. You
Well,
had to do something else.
but I was an optimist, you know, and I just never stopped, and I think the most important thing, whether you're being a cinematographer or a brain surgeon or or a dog walker. If it's something you want to do, stay away from the naysayers. I mean, people were telling me, "What are you going to do? You're not going to, ever work in LA. You're not, it's not going to happen. You don't know anybody.
I feel like you need one or two naysayers and then about
Yeah.
5 or 6 people who really
Well,
champion you.
Well, the one thing I learned real fast: people who don't have faith in you will get rid of themselves.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's a great piece of advice.
But plus, you're also surrounding yourself. There's, like you said, there's another 400 people in that group at that school. So you're not just like throwing stuff at the wind. Like, oh, I want to do film. Like, you're around a community of people that are actually trying to pursue similar, things.
Right, and we'd work together.
Yeah.
One guy would direct, and I was
Right.
I was always trying to be the camera guy, the cameraman.
Interesting. And then I'm assuming at that level you're doing all the jobs. You're doing sound, you're doing design, you're doing your own editing.
They actually were pretty good about making us staff it as properly as possible. So this guy does the sound, this guy does, and on the next film you might be doing something else.
Right.
Plus there was I had my first job there. KPBS is the San Diego PBS station, was on campus.
Oh,
amazing.
okay.
And so we had a big studio, and it was completely staffed, on the lower levels,
Right.
by the students. A whopping $1.75 an hour. And when I became
Sounds like an internship.
I became well. This was back in the early '70s, and that was probably
That wasn't bad
minimum
for-
wage. And I moved up to $2.25 an hour once I became a crew chief. Once the studio
What were you
man-
doing with all your money? You just
Steak
rolling in it?
dinners on you.
Scrooge McDuck?
Yeah.
Well, a lid was $10 then. So.
Oh, wow. And I don't know how far, I mean, I've tried to read quite a bit on you. Can you explain from college to what I really want to talk about, because I'm sort of a nerd too, is the General Dynamics job working with rockets and missiles. I know there's a lot in that space, but can you walk us up to that?
Yeah, I managed to work for about 3 years and just make enough money to where I didn't owe any money, but I didn't have any money.
Right.
Yeah, you kept saying you had like $25 in your bank account on an interview I saw or something
Well,
like that.
yeah, that was. I'll get to that in a second. I had interned at General Dynamics while I was at San Diego State.
And can you tell our audience what General Dynamics roughly is?
Oh, General Dynamics is a huge, it's a weapons company. They make, in those days it was the Tomahawk cruise missile, and then other stuff like Doppler radar, which the Border Patrol actually adopted, and they made Atlas missiles. They were the first. That's where they built the first Atlas missiles.
And that's because the military base is down there in San Diego.
I
That's
think
why all that was there.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good reason.
Yeah.
It was not my cup of tea. I realized after I'd been there a few months, and let me back up. Prior to that, I had worked on a very low budget, what do you call it, documentary about girls and horses. There was a big horse community that this producer tapped into and got this film made. And I was an operator, a camera operator on it. And we had like 3 or 4 cameras. We'd go to rodeos, were all female rodeos, and and jumping events and all that kind of stuff. Okay, and so what had happened is, having interned there, I remember I finally had to move home. I was out of money. I came back to Whittier for one day. The phone rang. It was General Dynamics offering me a job.
Back in San Diego.
Back in San Diego.
Good thing you moved.
Well, I could fit everything in my Datsun station wagon.
All $25.
Yes. And so I went down and did that. And in the meantime, the IA had been known for its exclusiveness. You can't be in the union. You can't join the union unless you've done, I think in those days it was 50 days of work. But you can't. But it has to be on a union show. But you can't work on a union show unless you're in the union.
Right.
I'm not kidding. That is.
It's like SAG. Same thing.
It's just go in a circle. I've seen people. You know,
And
the only-
yet
the
you
only
found
way-
a way to break in.
The only way you get a job back then is if like someone knew somebody, your uncle or cousin
right,
or whatever.
if you had the right last name.
Yeah.
But what happened was lawsuits, massive lawsuits against all the locals in the IA, just saying, this is this is against the law to keep people out. And so it was very quietly put out that if you had the days and the right paperwork and everything, and could prove you worked during between a certain time and whatnot.
Was it like 75 hours over 6 months or something like that?
You know what? I honestly can't remember what the.
It's probably a lot, though, right?
It was, but the producer I worked for, to make a point, I had. When I was working for General Dynamics, one of my jobs was, because I had clearance, was to drive the negative up to a cleared facility, and I honestly don't remember the name of it. And then I'd have to, pick it up at the end of the day. So I started going to the. Once I got on the roster, that just got me on the roster. And once I got on the roster, I started going to like Paramount and Universal. And just in those days, also, you didn't need a badge or anything.
You just walked on the lot.
Well, it wasn't that easy. I put a little sign in my front that said I was a courier. I think I called myself Park Place Courier, and I just hold up what looked like a VHS tape in a bag, and I found out, some building. I said, "Where is it?" And the guy would say, "Oh, come on in," and then I'd find the camera department and knock on the door.
Brilliant. You just got to look official.
Yeah.
Didn't Spielberg do something like that? Walked on the
Universal
lot with
lot.
a Universal lot.
He set up an office.
Yeah.
So he just one-upped you a little bit.
Yes.
What, may I ask, General Dynamics and that whole time working with cameras and stuff, what are we looking at in times of circa? Are we like early 70s,
I would
mid-70s?
say that was 1977. I was there 12 months. And I was towards the end of that, this guy was heading to Spain to do a documentary on.
Oh, that's right. You went for like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah, Carl Rogers, who was he's famous for his conversations with Carl Jung,
The psychologist.
And the having group therapy, instead of just one-on-one, having a room full of people all working on it. But anyhow, I came back and I just started pursuing it because that was my only job. And I still knew people in San Diego. I was still living in Del Mar, in fact. And that kept me above water until I finally got a one-day call at Universal on Battlestar Galactica, the original. And
there's an original? Okay.
Way back, yes. And then I didn't work for about 3 months. I got food stamps, and I made friends with the camera department at Paramount, and I worked a few days there. But then I was off for a while, and then the head of the camera department called me and said, "I want you to come out. I want you to come here, and I want you to sit in the audience and watch Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley." They were right. One was a Monday,
Gary
Tuesday
Marshall.
Yeah. One was a Monday, Tuesday show. One was a Thursday, Friday show. So I remember doing it because I had the flu or something at the time. It was pretty miserable, and they keep those places really cold. But it paid off. I went back home, had not heard anything. I was down to $20.
It's plummeting.
I know. And my buddy
He made
came
that
over.
$5 last a long time.
Yeah, he
though.
did.
But
He did.
I was living on the beach.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah. And no, $130 a month. No kidding. Picture window view of the Pacific Ocean. It was owned by land companies. It was amazing. It was amazing.
That's $4,000 a month.
Yeah, this is $4,000.
That's the
last
cheap
I
end. That's
saw
for a
it,
hammock.
I
That's for a
saw
hammock on
that
the
they
beach.
wanted to sell the property for like $40 or $50 million now.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's undeveloped. The last time I saw it, but anyhow,
So
You're in the audience. Gary Marshall, biggest producer, creator right now.
So, anyways, I went out. My buddy came over and I said, "I got $20. I'll go get us a 6-pack to take down to the beach." I walked back in the house. The phone rang, and I've never looked back. He offered me a new series that no one's ever heard of, but I didn't care. I got me in, got my hours.
So from roughly from school graduating to that, what was that struggle of
about
just
about 5-6 years.
wow,
Okay.
that's fast. Usually it takes people like 10.
So you're mid-20s, late 20s? Right.
Late, I was about 27,
27?
28, yeah.
And for the
This is-
audience, that show was that you got.
Oh, it was called Struck by Lightning.
Ah,
Jack Elam played the Frankenstein monster, and I can't remember the other lead's name. Sorry.
that's okay. And how long did that show last? Like that was your first paid
I was
union job?
No, it was my well, it was my first real series.
Got
to
it.
say it wasn't a day call.
Okay.
I mean, I had done a bunch. Well, in fact, after that, I did day calls all the time on second unit stunts,
Yeah.
and there was no safety.
Oh,
in
I
those
know about
days.
that. We'll get to the truck story in a second, but I know you did some like film loading for a car thing, and then you also boomed one time, which I mean, can you call yourself a real filmmaker if you haven't boomed at least once? Like, can you give us just a little bit of sprinkle in a little bit of that before we jump to?
The other stuff I did, like I said, San Diego had a little film community, and you just sort of knew everybody. And if
Right.
somebody had something to do, they hired all. They usually called. Like I said, it was little, so you could hire everybody, and in a couple of phone calls.
Right, right. And then did you find? I kind of try to weave this in anywhere. Was there a mentor or a couple people you looked up to, or a few people whose lighting you admired? Like, were you getting into that space at all, or does that come later?
That comes later. I was still, as far as I was concerned, just tickled pink to be an operator.
Yeah.
Oh, here's what I was going to say. The guy who did the horse thing, I went for an interview at Warner Brothers, and it said 2 on the roster for me. I didn't know what that meant. I thought that meant I would be a second assistant, which I thought I would have a much better opportunity of getting a job. So
Second assistant camera,
second assistant camera.
loading
And-
mags and like slates and marks on the ground,
schlepping and all-
schlepping.
yeah.
Yes.
And so I immediately got in my car, because he told me, the guy at in the camera department says here you're an operator. I'm not hiring you as an operator. You're not old enough. I got in my car and drove straight down to the producer's house. It was like 120 miles. I didn't stop. Saying, you got to rewrite this. You got to tell. And he looked at me and he says, "You're an asshole. It's gonna take you 10 years to get where you are now."
So you were given a voucher for varsity, and you're asking to be demoted to freshman.
Yes.
Well done, sir. Did
And-
he slap you?
Yeah, pretty much. He says, "You're an idiot. I'll see you in town. I'm not doing that. Go out and be an operator. You operated on my film and you did a good job. You already know how to do it." So that's what
So
happened.
you drove back 120 miles and did what?
Oh, I know. By that time I was still living in Del Mar.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
know,
I
and
got
my
you.
parents lived in Whittier at the time, so if I had to stay overnight, I just went out to their house and stayed in my old room.
Right.
Nice.
So you're on Struck by Lightning. You're working.
Yeah.
How long did that series last?
I think it was about. I think I came in because they fired some people,
Okay.
and
It's the best way to get a job.
yeah, and I think I did about 10 episodes. I think it was just at the end of it,
As just one of the camera operators.
Yeah, on a 3-camera
On a
show.
3-camera show.
Yeah.
And then that job led to, now that you're on the lot, you're probably meeting a lot of people. Does that job lead to another job, or just is that kind of how the community works? Just good work begets good work, or
See, and I was fortunate in those days. Every lot still had a camera department. They had a head of the camera department. They were little fiefdoms. You had to make money. Your department had to make money to exist.
Got it.
So they were renting cameras to their own films. It was I think it was an IRS thing. I don't know, but
Sounds about right.
and how did I get hired? Oh yeah, I learned real fast. Make friends with the secretaries. The heads of the department
yeah.
don't make the phone calls. And if they're going to need an extra operator the next day, call around 2 or 3 o'clock, because that's when the preliminary call sheets come in and what they need. And so you're saving that person a phone call,
Right.
and they're always happy to say, "Great, Wayne, be here, be someplace in L.A., but at 2:00 in the morning or whatever."
But you were proactive in getting work. I mean,
I-
you weren't just waiting for people to like hopefully hire you.
Well, no. Here's the other thing. In those days, we got paid a 43.2-hour week from the first day we started a show to the last day. Even at Christmas, you got full pay during Christmas.
Mhm.
It was great, and
Yeah.
You were making more than $25, I'm
yeah,
assuming.
yeah. It was a good times.
I just saw a twinkle in your eye too. And then from that Struck by Lightning to what's the jump to Mork and Mindy? Because I actually have a
Oh.
question about Mork and Mindy.
That jump was made. When I don't know if you read the trades, when Robin died, they mentioned that they hired a fourth camera because there's always
That's my question.
There was
Yeah.
always a line in the script that says Mork goes crazy, where he'd run around, and they weren't getting enough of that from their 3 cameras that were already there, so they hired my friend Gene Jackson, and he was my first, and me, and that's what we did for 2 seasons.
So Gary Marshall started the 4 camera.
Yes.
Okay, so one of my other best friends of 17 years, his name's Greg Wilson. He worked for Gary for the last 10 years of his life, and with Heather Hall, his right hand. And the story I've told, and I'll set it up because it comes with that question. He said that they got Robin on for the episode of Happy Days, where one of the few guest stars that got a standing ovation because he squares off with the Fonz,
Mm-hmm.
and he got a call as that episode aired going, "This guy's amazing. Do you have a pilot?" Gary lied through his teeth and went, "Absolutely. I got right here. Call me next week." And then he hung up. He's like, "I got nothing. I got to create something for this guy." So they bring him in for the first or second episode of Mork and Mindy. And he's running around being awesome and crazy. And Gary yells, "Cut," and goes, "Did you get that?" And whoever this older camera guy, union, probably sick of it. He's like, "Well, he never ran past here." And he goes, "But he's genius. How did you not get that?" And this guy was like, "Well, if he's a genius, have him hit his mark." And so they bring in a fourth camera, which in essence starts 4-camera sitcom specifically for Robin.
Well-
and I want to actually talk to someone who was there
Yeah.
because I'm curious how much of that is Gary punching up the story because he's good at that. He can make anything funny. And how much of that is what you've heard?
Accurate.
No,
and
that's why we were hired. We were told that's why we were hired.
Just follow Robin Williams
Follow
around.
Robin Williams, and always particularly at that moment, we want it to be all good. So it was challenging.
Because
But-
you have to keep up with a guy who's jumping over couches
Yeah,
and
you
cartwheels.
don't know where he's going.
Yeah.
There's no rehearsal.
And it just said in the script, and he goes crazy.
And Robin goes crazy. That's it. That's all it said. And he could do whatever he wanted because he was great at improv. Well, probably some of the best comedy I've ever seen in my life. And unfortunately, nobody had phones then or anything. Was when Jonathan Winters came on the show playing the baby. Their
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
Before what would happen is Robin would walk in, and then Jonathan would walk in, and they would immediately. It was no like, "Hey, how was your week?" or anything. They were immediately in a routine, an improv routine, and it was great. It was amazing. I just wish there was somebody would have had a
No, because then it would be
No.
all over there. I like that it's in memory and story only.
Yeah.
Some things need
Everything
to just
doesn't
be
need-
as is. That's great. Okay, so it is true. I got to work a little bit around Gary. He was a super generous guy.
a
miss
great
him.
guy.
He can make anything funny. Gave me my first line in a movie. I miss Gary, but I'd heard a few stories, and you always like, how much has somebody kind of like embellished a little bit, but that sounds accurate, which is pretty awesome.
And he wasn't an arrogant guy at all. He was just a peach of a person. He would talk to he knew everybody on the crew.
And did I read, or you either said in an interview, or I read it somewhere on you, where you didn't know he was the director, and you suggested something or something like that? Did I get that right?
No, here's what happened. We were brought in, Gene and I. This was just before Mork and Mindy. We were brought in to do the girls. Laverne and Shirley joined the Army,
Mhm.
and Gary was directing second unit, and we were on second unit with Gary. And Gene says, I'm just yelling, "Hey, Gary, do you want me to hold that?" Something about the shot, because they had a video assist in those days,
Oh, yeah.
And we were up on a crane, and there was no way for him to see what we were doing, and I didn't think anything about it, And Gene looks at me and says, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "Not really."
Like the second director unit or
Yeah,
something like that.
second unit director. He says, "No, that's Gary Marshall. He owns this show."
You're like, and then your response was,
Well, he seems to respond to me like a regular guy. He's
Yeah.
not. I don't think I've pissed him off.
no, he was never like that. He was always
No.
super kind. He was actually genius, and then he would disguise it with like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he knew exactly what he was doing.
Well, one of the thing about the 4-camera sitcom is, as soon as we had 4 cameras, I don't know who the director was. They were doing Taxi.
Oh, Jimmy Burrows, I think. Yeah,
I
Jimmy Burrows.
think it was.
Yeah.
And Jimmy comes. He came over, saw what we were doing, went back and said, "I want 4 cameras." And pretty soon,
Everything
it just took off.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how long were you on Mork and Mindy? The whole run of the show?
No, just the last 2 seasons.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I think it only went 5 years, didn't it, or something like that?
Yeah.
Probably.
5 or 6, something like that. But you probably already know this too. But Gary had asked his son Scotty, like, "Hey, do you like Happy Days?" He goes, "Yeah, it's all right, Dad. What would you like to see if I do an episode?" He goes, "I want to see an alien." And Gary's like, "All right, I got to write an alien." That's Mork.
There you go.
From that to 4 cameras, you've changed the game. All right, I've asked a lot of questions. Your turn.
No. But now you're doing 4-camera sitcoms. Now you have that under your belt. Where does that take you? Are you just more, I just got to get another job now?
Yeah, and you just hope, and you do it the same way. You just hope you've done a good enough job that you'll get the next job.
Right.
And
Now, looking at your whole resume, we were blown away that you've worked with Robin Williams, Bob Newhart, and then Jerry Seinfeld, like 3 monster comedy people. So you got on Newhart clearly after that, but was that,
Yeah.
and you were on that show?
Well, here's what happened in the business. What happened was 1-inch came in.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
Oh,
explain
1-inch videotape.
Okay.
Oh,
And that's when All in the Family.
because they used to be on the 3 inches or something like that.
2
The
inch.
betas. Oh, okay.
2-inch. But I mean, so all those guys that came out of Metro Media. It was called Metro Media. It's still there. They were doing 1-inch in all those shows, All in the Family, and so it was cheaper than buying film, processing it, cutting it together, making a release print,
Mhm.
all that stuff, and so it took over sitcoms. Well, I'm just going to say it. I was horrible at the pedestal, running a pedestal. I was terrible. I was good on the wheels, and good on a O'Connor head, but I was terrible on, you had to dance with the camera, really. And so...
Well, it's also a brand new, in essence, medium, and I guess in a way, right? It's what you've not trained on for the last 10 years.
Well,
Or is there a different issue that caused?
well,
you to
no,
have
the
to
issue,
struggle?
the issue for me, it was just having to zoom, focus, and move, and do everything myself.
So are you pulling your own focus and zooming?
Oh, yeah, and moving the camera.
Ooh.
And
Wow.
I mean, there are people who are good at it, really good at it, and God bless them. But I remember just being chewed out in the producer's office after an episode of, at Sony, and I walked out and I said, okay, now I got to find a single camera show. I loved comedy though. I still wanted to do comedy, but I ended up on a shoot 'em up spy show
Mhm.
that I learned very quickly that I did not want to do this kind of work for the rest of my life for 70 to 80 hours a week. I mean, if you have a girlfriend, she's not there in 3 weeks because you're too tired when you come home to do anything, and you got to come. Yeah.
Was that the show where they had you hanging off the truck?
Oh no, that was before that.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Sorry we skipped it. Would you tell that story, please?
Well, it was, I was a new kid in town, and I didn't know how they did things, and it was a show called BJ and the Bear. All those, there were 3 shows: Dukes of Hazzard, BJ and the Bear, and Sheriff Lobo. Those the car
Fairly
race.
big action car stunts.
Yeah, with a little humor thrown in.
Mhm.
And like I said, you didn't have video assist, so you had to be looking through no matter what was coming at you, you had to be looking through the eyepiece.
Do you sorry, and Paul, do you wear contacts when you have to be in the eyepiece, or do you just keep your glasses on?
Oh, you can adjust I adjust the eyepiece for my
Glasses.
vision.
Copy that.
For
Okay.
my vision. I take my eyeglasses off, yeah, and correct it. And
The show.
he wanted a shot of the tire getting close to a cliff, going off the road, and we're in a semi, and the stunt coordinator put a hemp rope. It's probably a 3/4 inch hemp rope around me, and I stood on an
AKA the harness.
I stayed on an apple box, so this thing went around me and went up here and hooked me onto the side view mirror,
which is obviously meant to hold a human being up
yeah.
at 40 miles an hour.
Well, we weren't quite going that fast, I don't think, but we were moving, and I'm just looking down, thinking, I guess this is how they do it, and we got the shot. We got the shot, and they were happy, and I got called for more of those. I didn't like always doing them.
So you're now a stunt
So you're a
videographer.
stunt coordinator
Yeah.
/ cameraman / DP.
And I remember this one scene I had to shoot where a car's coming right at me, spinning, and it's supposed to stop like 3 or 4 feet in front of my camera, and they had a rope around me then, with 2 guys ready to yank me out of the way in case I was going to get hit, and this lady parked that thing 3 feet in front of me to perfection, and I just said, "How did you learn to do that?" She says, "Well, we rent a car, we buy the insurance, and we go up to Mojave and practice."
I mean, how else do you do that?
Yeah,
You got to practice.
And she was great at it.
How many times did she have to hit her mark?
Oh, just one.
Just one, and you got
if
it.
the show was good, if the shot was good, you didn't do that again.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So that wasn't, you didn't like working on those shows. That wasn't like those long.
70-hour
action.
weeks. I had lived at the beach long enough to know that having a good time should be a part of life.
Right.
Yeah. And so, when did you meet? You're married with a couple kids.
Yeah.
You have 2 daughters, right? Is that
Yes.
right? How? Give us a little insight there, because you've maintained a very healthy career and also relationships. So,
Well, once I got into Newhart, once I got back to what happened was, 1 inch was popular for just that one little period there, until telecine was invented as flying spot scanner for the film. Now, and they were convinced that library-wise, this would be the smartest thing to have, is the film original, because I've seen old videotape stuff of that period, and it doesn't look good anymore.
yeah, because it degrades over time.
And they could transfer film to a PAL system for Europe, and it was just more. It gave them a much wider breadth to sell this stuff. So finally we went back. Bob Newhart did not like videotape, and so I got hired on there as a camera operator because the one guy was leaving to go become a DP, and so I got hired back on. I had done one, I think. I don't remember how that all falls into place time-wise, but I was so happy to be back and laughing, and I've stayed there ever since.
I don't know if I read something or if I heard it on another audio, but was it true that Bob Newhart was a big fan of doing just one take?
Yes.
And if you got it right,
He
keep it going.
No, he said this. He says, did any camera have it? As long as one camera had it, I am not doing it again. It's not funny a second time. That was before, once again, we didn't have video assist. So he'd make all the writers take front row center, for a show night.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'd walk up and talk to them about changes. But usually there weren't any changes.
Right.
It was shot one scene after another, and that was that.
Unless there was obviously a mistake, and you have to go back.
Yeah,
and get
or a technical thing where the film jammed or something.
Was Gary like that as well on Mork and Mindy? Because how do you have Robin Williams do something amazing again? Like, capturing that.
I don't really remember doing that more than once
Yeah.
per episode.
Yeah.
that and where he talks to Orson. That was done once an episode. We took turns. I don't know if you remember the show. He talks to Orson at the end of what did you learn?
But yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of comedies, I mean, like you said, Bob Newhart was probably accurate. It's not funny the second or third time. If you can get it on the first take.
He wants the real laughter. He doesn't want to put it. He says, "I'm not putting laughter in where it doesn't, it wasn't in the audience."
Unearned laughter, right?
So
right.
to kind of keep it moving, at this time you're still camera operator.
Yeah.
When do you make that jump to DP, cinematographer? I mean, is that just
Newhart? Newhart was a show I moved up on, and what happened there was, to make a long story short, they had they were giving our crew a second show, and I went to the camera department. In those days, there's still a camera department at CBS, and the guy says, "Hey, we're giving you, it was a good deal." And he says, and I said, "Yeah, but I want to move up." And he says, "Yeah, but look what we're giving you." And I said, "Yeah, but I want to move up." He says, "Well, go talk to the DP on your show and tell him you want to move up, And I went in, and the DP said to me about the deal that we've made. He says, "How'd that go?" And I said, "Good." And he says, "Well, what'd you tell him?" I said, "I told him I wanted to move up." That can be really dangerous.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah.
I just took my chances because what I was going to say is I had confidence in myself that I could do this because I was doing it on the single camera show.
Right.
And he walked over to me about 15 minutes later and says, "You want to move up on this show?" And I said, "Yeah, but you know what? I don't know how to light a 3-camera show." He says, "Start coming in Wednesday nights and we'll teach you everything you need to know." And so he would give me, he showed me.
Were you his backup or alternate, or was he done with the show and he wanted out?
No, he was moving on.
Ah, okay.
He was just moving on, and he had not told production yet or anything, and I was coming in and watching him light, and he was explaining to me why he's doing this and doing that. And once he at the end of it, I had shot by the time we got to the final episode of that season, I had lit that entire episode. He says, "You light this entire episode and your future will depend on it."
Yeah.
And he told the producer and the producers, and they finally said, "Okay." And Bob Newhart said, "Okay, that's probably the."
That's it.
I mean, that's yeah.
And if you had, I know you obviously opt for a long time. Is your heart or passion? Do you enjoy lighting more than you enjoy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I love lighting and and setting up a shot.
And this is way back, and I can't remember when you said it in one of your interviews, but you said something along the lines of, you could learn more about lighting shooting in black and white. Someone told you that in college when you were shooting movies, and I was curious why that is.
Because you have when you have color, you have all this color that you have to really model everything in black and white. Otherwise, it's just a gray picture.
Okay.
If I just put up this big light on you two guys and shoot it in black and white, it's going to be pretty flat.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you're wearing all these colors and your background, and it enhances, it makes it easier to make a nice picture, I think.
There's less to hide behind in
Yeah,
terms of it. You have to. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I was just curious. Sorry. Go ahead.
So you were in the right place at the right time, obviously on Newhart, but you also had the wherewithal to, I want more. It wasn't really about a new job and whatever more money they're offering you. You wanted to move up. You took a chance. You worked really hard, and then now that begot your DP career.
Yes.
So you lit the rest of the show.
I think I did the last 3 seasons of Newhart.
And then once that's done, now you're just a DP on other shows.
Well, yeah, yes. I had to go find another job, which turned out to be Get a Life.
And so this is what, mid-'80s?
That would be 1987 that I moved up.
And then when did Seinfeld start? 89?
I think it started.
90?
I think it started in maybe 88 or 89.
Okay.
And because its first season was 4 episodes.
Yeah,
its
right.
Second season was 12 episodes.
Yeah.
I came in on the 3rd season,
which is their first full season.
Yeah, and once again, Get a Life had finished. I was on the lot just to say hi, just to make sure my face is still around.
So, Angelo, moral of this podcast
Get
is
on the
get
lot.
on the lot, just walk around, and hopefully somebody sees you.
Yeah,
And they talk to you. And by the way, also just only talk to assistants, and
Oh, I'm learning a lot
secretaries.
over
Yeah.
here. I'm learning a
got it.
lot.
And the first AD, I see her. She's who I knew from a pilot that I had done. She sees me and she says, "Hey, are you working?" I said, "No, I'm looking for a job." And she says, "You want to do Seinfeld? You'll come on in and meet the producer." So I went in and met the producer, and a week later, I took over the show.
I mean, I'm sure that
He was
I'm trying
leaving.
to think. There's several producers, but wasn't Larry David.
No, it was the line producer,
Got it.
Tom Sharonis.
Oh, Tom Sharonis. Okay. All right. And so you told a story about something, the limousine, I think was the first episode.
Yeah,
Or something. There was something about rain. I can't remember
The limo
all of it.
episodes, like I think in like Seinfeld lore, it's like top 5 best episodes like ever. And that was your first episode.
Yeah, and that was my test episode too. And boy, did we have a lot of shit going on.
So you got gold out of a difficult situation. Please regale
Well,
us.
okay,
Yes.
here's. It was a real rainy time of year. Well, before that, I knew how to do Hansard. You know who the Hansards were?
No.
The Hansards were the only company, the only place in town that did rear screen projection.
Oh,
Rear
that's
screen
right.
projection is you'd take this little projector, put it way over there on that end of the stage, and there'd be a translucent screen behind the car,
Okay.
and it would project movement,
Right.
Real,
And
they would go
weren't
out
they
and
a
shoot it.
private family
Yeah.
company that only did that and just that?
Just that. And that was probably one of their last gigs because blue screen and green screen and all that stuff was starting to happen.
Well,
Okay.
and now we've come full circle with Favreau and everything he's doing with Mandalorian.
Right. With the what do you call? I forget what they're called.
The
this
LED panel thing.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. Anyway, so there was rear screen projection, which Cameron was a big fan of, obviously for Aliens and a couple other movies, and then you were you had the job for Seinfeld. And how did those two things come together?
Here's the deal with Seinfeld. On that day, we were over at Paramount on their back lot. That's where we shot that limo show.
Okay.
And
Was that where all the shows?
No.
The CBS slot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact I'll tell you that little story in a second. But it was raining. It was pouring rain, and I looked. Tom Sharonis was also the director. He's producer director. I said, "Hey, it was just pouring rain." He says we can't do this, and I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Let's do this. Let's block every scene with them holding umbrellas or whatnot, and when it lets up, we will just start shooting."
Yeah.
And it worked. It stopped raining. That's why that looks so pretty, that
Right.
because it was a real wet down. The buildings were wet, the ground was wet, everything was wet. And we shot everything, and just about the time they yelled, "That's a wrap," it started pouring rain again. They were spot on, They were spot on.
So you were on. So that was amazing. But you were on Seinfeld. That was their first full season, season 3.
Yeah.
And you stayed the whole duration of the show.
Yes.
Like 3 through, did it go 8 seasons? 9 seasons.
They say 9 seasons.
You also have some not acting credits, but you're in several episodes.
Well,
You're in the diner.
Yeah.
You're the guy in the diner.
It was one of those days where they said, "Listen, we need to pre-shoot something. Let's just pre-shoot the diner." And they said, "We don't have any extras. Let's put the crew in."
Right.
So in that particular scene that I'm in, everybody in there is a
crew member.
crew
That's
member.
So I did not know you had a thespian career also to add to your resume. What plays are you doing next? Anything we'll see you in? Maybe.
I only do Neil. What's his name?
Simon.
Neil LaBute.
Neil Simon.
Oh, Neil
Yes.
Simon.
Yeah, Neil LaBute too.
All right, dude.
So you're on Seinfeld, 9 seasons. I mean, your job seems like any other job, actor, writer. Like you just got to always keep moving, try to find other jobs. Like no one's offering you jobs, are they?
Most DPs have agents. I never got an agent. I learned that if I
You're on the lot the whole time. People are just like, "Hey, you had to work."
if I made friends with the producers and got them to like me, they
Right.
called me.
Mm.
That's better than an agent.
Way better.
Or you have 10 agents now.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
like
I
you
figure
technically.
for the amount of work I did, I put both girls through private colleges on that 10% I would have otherwise given him.
Are your daughters in film or anything related to
My
film?
youngest is working for a manager and maybe on the track to become a manager herself with 3 Arts, You know,
Oh
that's
yeah, 3 hours. Yeah.
Huh.
they're huge. And my other daughter is a musician.
She play the saxophone too?
No, she plays keyboard.
Oh, which you play a
Amazing.
little bit of keyboard, I believe, right?
Sometime. It's been a while.
It's saxophone and something else.
Guitar more than anything, yeah.
Guitar. Okay.
So looking at the list of credits, you basically that one single camera show was pretty much all you worked on. You stayed comedy the whole time, pretty much.
Yeah.
Multicam.
Yeah, I did one low budget feature that made it to Sundance competition. You know, it was a 3-week
Yeah.
shoot, and we did it. And I did another film with Jason Alexander that didn't do so well. It never got. I think you can find it on
Anywhere,
Amazon
any
or
streaming
somewhere,
service.
but I don't think it ever was in a theater.
What did we do after Seinfeld? Obviously, you did that Seinfeld show that only lasted maybe the pilot or whatever.
It's like, you know, that was with Peter Melman, who was one of the Seinfeld writers. We did 2 half seasons, and in the meantime, I'm just trying to remember what else I did.
But that just goes to show you, like, just because you're a writer on a hit show, doesn't mean that the next show is going to do anything.
No.
Yeah.
Yep.
No. There's no, and I'm the least of all to know what's good. The stuff I think is good usually gets
Right.
canceled, except for Seinfeld.
Except for Seinfeld.
And
What anybody that you really want to work with still? That you haven't had the opportunity? I feel like you've had such a long career and you've been on all these shows, Seinfeld, Newhart, anyone that you like, oh, I'd love to get on a show like that, or someone that's inspiring you right now.
Well, I mean, I got to be honest. I've had it's been a really good year as far as people, and I'll wait to see the ratings. But
Yeah.
it just aired the one. It's called How We Roll.
Okay.
It just aired, and I did okay in ratings. I don't
Yeah.
know when there were 3 networks. If you had a 20 share or below, you were out of here. And
What was that? The Nielsen ratings?
Yeah,
back
Nielsen
then?
ratings.
Yeah.
And some of these shows get picked up with a 1.5 share.
Yeah.
You know, nowadays, I think they.
Well, there's
see,
also like 1,000 shows now.
Yeah,
There's
it's
like,
not 5 networks. It's 50 streaming
Oh,
services.
well, I mean, for Emmys, think about it. Back when there were 3 networks, there was probably how many primetime shows? 25, maybe.
Maybe.
There are over 550 scripted shows eligible for Emmys this year. Who's going to watch all that?
I mean, that's good for work.
Yes,
not
yeah.
so much for trying
Not
to
for-
watch everything.
But that's why there's that 1.5% share. That's why the
Right.
shows keep getting picked up.
Well,
Because
yeah,
you don't need the 20%
yeah,
and get the boot.
I think they're looking at it in the long term more so than in and out. You know.
Well, a little bird whose name I will not repeat told me that you have a dream still to do a Bollywood production. And I'm not going to say this person's name rhymes with Bobbin, but it might.
I would love to. When we were at Sony, when you shoot at Sony has, they bring in we'd have a TV set in there that hooked up to the company's cable, and they have 2 or 3 Spanish channels aimed at Spain and South America. They had a Bollywood television channel where you got to see singing competition that we have here. It's the same,
Like an American Idol, but in Bollywood.
It's Indian Idol.
Yeah.
And those are pretty good. But I just loved the art direction. Everything is just over the top.
Yeah.
Silk, red, orange, blue, just all of this in huge choreography.
Oh, yeah.
50, 60 people all
Yeah.
doing the same thing. It looks like fun to me.
Are you going to dance in it as well? Because they might need some extras
You
to
never
fill in the
know.
back
You
slots.
never know.
It's okay if you want to start dancing
Only
at
if
70.
only if the rest of the crew wants to.
All right, deal.
Where do you see the future of cinematography going? Do you see it more in that Jon Favreau Mandalorian with all the LED lighting, all that stuff, or do you think it's going to be more still traditional with just added tech?
I think it will depend on the story. I mean, you couldn't do a movie like Driving Miss Daisy with a bunch of panels. It wouldn't have that out in the country space.
You can't make
know.
the country behind you. and-
Well, you can, but
Yeah.
I just wouldn't. I don't think.
it's not Iowa.
I think it's probably has a much bigger effect on actors.
Oh,
Right.
Not having. I did a little thing with RuPaul about 4 or 5 months ago.
Mhm.
They took a Brady Bunch script episode that aired, and they took the script word for word and replaced all of the ladies in the Brady Bunch with drag queens.
Okay.
And
Actually
we
sounds-
had
actually sounds
I want to
funny.
watch that.
Yeah.
we had it streams on, I think, Paramount.
Okay.
I think it
I have
streams on
Paramount Plus. What was the name of it? I'll just look up RuPaul. It's fine. I'll find
RuPaul Classics, I think it's called.
Eh.
But we had a green screen.
Mhm.
But it was the same deal. They had gone back and taken footage from the original Brady Bunch and taken pieces and rebuilt the whole house. You know, I think there was a bathroom, there was a bedroom, and the living room and the kitchen. And they, you know, I was walking around in the Brady Bunch kitchen, but it was all green stuff. You know, there would be a
Ah,
green table
yeah.
or everything. If I looked up at the monitor, I would see myself in the Brady Bunch kitchen. If I looked back, all I saw was green.
it. Yeah.
And we did that, and it worked.
But that's not the same as walking onto one of Ridley Scott's sets where everything is built and you get to live in that world.
Right. Yeah, I think to me, that would be hard to be an actor in a blue screen environment if that's
Yeah.
all you had.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Now, obviously, some stuff can't be shot without it, but
Right.
well, that's a question, I guess, of taste. When it's able, you would prefer to shoot the real thing in the real
yeah.
space.
Yeah, if you could really do that, yes, if it exists.
We're kind of coming up to an hour, so I have one or two questions. If it's okay, I'd love to finish up with.
Oh, sure. I'm not in any hurry.
One is not really that profound, but I would love to get your take. Do you prefer the title cinematographer or director of photography, and why?
Well, you know, it took a long time, I think, to get the word director. If anybody who had it's a title thing. It's all it is. And I've heard other cinematographers, the old timers when I was a young timer, you know, they said, don't let go of the director of photography. We don't want to let go of that. I say cinematographer just because it's
Shorter.
shorter,
Mhm.
but we want to keep that director of photography in the credits.
And just for the audience that's watching us on YouTube and listening, explain like what is that job? What are you doing? You're just lighting and setting the room for each individual shot. Is that what the director of photography essentially does?
Well, I always thought that the most important thing we do is set a context for the story to take place and to help it,
Okay.
to not harm it, you know, to
Right.
make it believable and make it happy, sad, romantic.
Color palettes,
Yeah.
sharpness of
Yeah,
lighting. Or,
Right, and you know how much dark and light you have,
Mhm.
contrast. All of that goes into to what I consider what we do.
The sum total of all light in that frame is your responsibility.
Yes.
That's
hopefully.
a lot of pressure.
That's a lot. Yeah.
I hope they pay you more than $25. Second question, and there's only three total. Second would be, you ask a question if you got
No,
one.
I'll wait for yours.
My second question would be, if you weren't, we kind of ask everybody this, so it's not that.
That's true.
If you didn't make it in cinematography, or you just had decided to change your mind and be like, you know what, this isn't quite for me. What is there a second thing you think you would have ended up doing or pursuing or loving to?
I probably would have pursued music.
Okay, music, and specifically guitar and saxophone.
Yeah, something like that. I really didn't know that much about, you know, like Berkeley and these places that are
Yeah.
you know, oriented to, like that, and they're turning out pop stars now. You know,
Right.
You would have been a pop star.
I don't know.
I could see you. New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys. You got it. You already want to do Bollywood. And then what kind of music? Like, who are a couple of your fans? Like, what did you grow up listening to?
Buffalo Springfield, Birds.
Okay. All right. Bob Dylan a little bit? No?
Oh yeah, Bob
Okay, okay.
Dylan,
All right,
sure.
all right.
Joni Mitchell, Moby Grape.
The fact that you play all the instruments and you are into music, that's probably a great backup, even if you hadn't done cinematography.
Yeah, I don't think I my gut feeling is I probably would not have been that great of a musician. I'm not a kid. I wasn't a kid who liked to practice
Ah.
longer than about 10 minutes. You know, I want to learn this riff,
Right.
and then I'm done. You know, but the people who are really good. I had a roommate at that beach house. He was asked to
For $140 a month or whatever you
Yeah,
said it cost.
130 bucks.
130. Okay.
and he had a when Lindsey Buckingham
Yeah.
quit.
Yeah.
He was called into audition.
Hmm.
When he wasn't gigging, he was practicing 10 hours a day, 8 to 10 hours a day. You know,
That's an obsession. That's not just a hobby.
Yeah.
right. And, well, he's made a living.
You
Doing
have
that.
to be that good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming though you take on that posture when it comes to lighting and set.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You'll be there 10 hours a day.
if it need be,
If it
yes.
need be, yeah. But you just didn't want to
We-
practice guitar
We've
for
gotten
10 hours a day.
we've gotten a little faster.
For someone who is considering that path, there's a small percentage that know they want to do that and they're going to pursue it no matter what. But for somebody who's either on the fence or considering becoming a director of photography or moving in that direction, a piece of advice or something to watch out for, something to pay attention to, a takeaway for the audience.
Oh, yes. I think I said it earlier. Surround yourself with people who have faith in you, you know, and are saying, go, do it, you know. And that was one
Because
of
the naysayers, what did you say before?
I said,
Are going to weed themselves out
yeah,
automatically.
people who lack faith in you will get rid of themselves.
Yeah.
And
Great soundbite.
to me, I mean, it was my brother told me this when I quit General Dynamics. My parents were completely flummoxed. You know, how could he give up?
Flummoxed, what a good word.
How can he give up that job? And you know, it was a good job. On that note, I remember in 1989 when the wall came down.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That Convair division is where I worked. General Dynamics Convair division, 3,000 employees. Poof. The smart guys were at Hughes. They said, wait, we got some technology here. We can make satellite television. All the weapons companies just went belly up
Yeah.
because we didn't have an enemy anymore.
So you
Makes
got
sense.
out
I got
because you
out.
actually pursued what you
Yeah.
wanted to go after.
Yeah, and
I respect that.
I think if you do that and you have a passion for it, you'll succeed.
Hmm.
It may not be tomorrow and it may not be next week, but you will succeed at some point. Maybe when you're down to your last $20, you'll succeed.
Yeah. That's usually what happens. Are you mentoring a lot of people right now? Do you talk at a lot of? Do you go back to San Diego State and speak?
I haven't. I did once or
Mhm.
twice. I think I went down once or twice, and where I was actually helping out was USC. A friend of mine who was a director, Peter Bonners. He had a professorship there, and they would do a sitcom. And they do it. They pretended they were the professors were the network.
Yep.
And they'd, somebody write a script, somebody, and the guys who were lighting the sets, they had I think a living room and maybe a kitchen. And they would come down to my show and I'd show them how it worked. And then I'd go there and work with them a little bit
Nice.
to show them how,
I mean, that's
how it works.
That's what the DP did for you. Like, I don't know
Yes.
how to light that.
Absolutely.
So it sounds very, it's
You're definitely
transferred
paying it
person to
forward,
person.
yeah.
Yeah. We're not doing anything different than Carl Freund did on Lucy and Desi. He's the guy who invented it.
Wow.
That's the kind of lighting that would work.
Right.
That's amazing.
Oh, and by the way, Desi Arnaz was a visiting professor. He lived in Del Mar because he had a horse ranch up in, he was into the ponies. And
Well, that's where the track is, right?
Yeah, it's right across the street. And he taught for one semester. He taught production, and it was multicam, production and directing. It was only for seniors. I was a junior, but I would stand in the back. I went in every time, and he was not Ricky Ricardo. He was a brilliant, well-spoken, and very charming guy. that's probably part of the inspiration for for myself, which
Right.
is
We love hearing stories from people because we're both not from entertainment families, and we love the business, and we are always trying to learn. And it sounds the same for you. Like you literally had a passion for something, and,
And you
didn't
went
want
after
and
it.
didn't want to just do like a 9 to 5 job, or like the counselor said, a businessman, teacher, whatever. And no knock to businessmen or teachers out there. Most of my friends back east are all teachers, but yeah, you just stuck with it, and then put yourself in the right positions and kept going.
Well, I got to tell you, the show I just finished. I walked in the first day, and there was a new young kid, Grip. And I said, your last name's Peach. Are you any relation to the Peach dynasty? And he says, yeah, Marty's my dad. Marty's my dad. His dad was a key Grip, but his uncle, he was a DP I worked for in single camera for a little bit. He wasn't the bad guy. He's a great guy.
Yeah, yeah.
But the one who impressed me the most was the grandpa. I'm working for this guy, and I'm a big fan of Laurel and Hardy. I'm a big fan of Abbott and Costello. I don't know what ever happened to team comedy, but
Foster Brooks. You a big fan of Foster Brooks too?
yes.
Okay.
Well, I worked on for his dad, his grandpa,
Yeah.
who was about 80 at the time, and he had been director of photography on Sons of the Desert with Laurel and Hardy in 1933.
Gee.
And I just thought that was the greatest thing. I was thinking how fun that must have been to work with those guys.
I'd be like, yeah. I mean, they're up there with Chaplin. I mean, those are the top.
You worked with them, but did you get to actually sit down and talk to them about anything, or?
No, it would be George Lafontaine. A man named George Lafontaine is my he's the one who showed me how to light Newhart. And he has a son, Chris, who's also a director of photography. He learned from him. So Chris and I are somewhat interchangeable if one of us is sick, because we both learn from the same guy.
Yeah.
I can walk in on his sets and I know what's going on. He can walk in on mine and know what's going on.
If he didn't take the time to show you, do you think eventually you just would have kind of figured it out, or just trial and error? Like, I mean,
well, it's a pretty simple thing. The rest is your eye. You just have you have to make sure you're not lighting the microphones, and you're not lighting it's if we were a sitcom,
Yep.
my key light would be up there, your key light would be up there, the pole, right, the boom pole would be in, but the shadow would be over there, so out of the picture.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's the crux of it.
Yep.
And you get modeling, because it's a back cross, so this side of my face is going to be darker than that side, because this is my key light.
Yeah.
That's
Tony, you know the term, right?
Yeah,
What
back
we
to
have here?
cross, bro. Come on.
He's been working on dropping a few terms.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
They grow up so
Yes,
fast.
I do.
Oh man, Wayne, thank you again for being here today,
We
man. It's
appreciate it,
been such a pleasure. All right, for everyone out there watching us on YouTube, hit that smash like button. We appreciate that. Keeps us going. Spotify, you can find us on Google Play. I don't know, some other things that are probably online.
Subscribe everywhere.
Subscribe everywhere. Yeah, we appreciate that too. Wayne, thank you again. And for everybody else out there watching us, we will see you next time. Have a good weekend.